Thank you very much indeed, Presiding Officer. It's been an interesting, if somewhat technical debate. It carried with it the danger of being that political debate that is not simply over when everything has been said, but only when everyone has said it. However, we managed to avoid falling into that trap, and right up to the very last moment, we were hearing new aspects of the issues around this bill, which was very welcome. Alec Ferguson referred to cumulo as being an issue and referred to clouds. Perhaps I should draw to his attention that one of the variants of cumulo clouds is, of course, cumulonimbus clouds, which are thunder clouds. So perhaps he might be on to something in dealing with this issue. I know he just wanted me to bring forward that particular point. Claire Baker asked if we'd be looking at both bills, and I think I can say that we will. The issue of Grasham is a complex one, and in legal terms, it is not a substitution for rent, but in reality a transfer of value. Alison Johnson, I listened very carefully to her quite detailed comments on the legislation the bill that was taken through Westminster on behalf of Edinburgh Council, and I will study what she said carefully. Mr Biaggi has indicated to me that he would be happy that all three of us sit down and discuss the issue, which of course I would equally be happy to do. So if you would use my private office between you to make that happen. Let me just talk about the 9 sites, and Claire Baker in her remarks talked about the 3 Glasgow sites that are common good that would be affected among the 9 that are here. The 3 Glasgow sites, interestingly, one is Balloch Country Park. So the effect of this bill is to transfer the ownership from Glasgow Council to Western Bartonshire Council, who are the tenant. So I think, in principle, that should not greatly concern us. The other 2 sites are recreational areas within Pollock Park, which, because of the nature of the way things work, and the tenant would remain exactly unchanged in practical terms and available. Other ones we've talked about, the site in Stonehaven. I made reference to Nigel Donn. There is one at Stevenson Close in Edinburgh, which is a tiny bit of land which provides access to somebody's house, and that's very long established. There's one in Ayr, which is Russell House, which is a public trust that looks after an ancient house. A little bit of the house is common good and would fall within this. And then we had the reference to the 3 pieces of land adjacent to Sanker, which were subject to lease between 1800 and 1810. And again, when you look at the specific 9 leases that are common good and the effect this bill has, in those known leases, I don't think there really is in practice any great concern to make. Claudia Beamish made a number of references, as many others did, to common good. It's worth saying that the Local Government Act, Scotland 1973, provides that common good fund does not form part of the general fund. That's one of the more recent areas. So therefore, you would naturally therefore assume that if the assets of the common good are changed, sold, that therefore they cannot simply be transferred at a whim to the general fund. So without giving a definitive legal opinion, because I wouldn't want to put myself in the position of appearing to do that, I think it would remain within the public area. Rob Gibson talked, as many others did, about registration. There is one part of the bill that's before us which covers one of the tricky areas, which is, of course, leases that may or may not be registered. And we'll look further at section 65 in relation to that. The issue of variable rent, too, and indeed, of course, there is uncertainty because the existence of some leases is uncertain and unknown, and, of course, owners may actually be dead. So there are much bigger issues that we have to deal with in Scotland's land tenure system. On Blair Gowrie, I think we had some further comments as we went through the debate. They are essentially 99-year leases that can be perpetually renewed, but of course they're not necessarily written down. So this is where much of the mischief has come from. I think Marco Biaggi made a very reasonable point about the context within which the Waverley Market lease was written, that it was almost a gun-to-the-head job on the part of Edinburgh, and it clearly on that basis is very different from the overwhelming majority of leases that will be affected by this bill. I certainly will be taking forward with officials the quite complex legal issues that do surround the pre-existing legislation. And I'm certainly motivated to deliver on the kind of outcome that I think is broadly shared across the Parliament. Nigel Donn raised the issue of ECHR. Let me just assure him that we have looked at that very, very carefully indeed. Just on the Waverley Market, I repeat again, we are not going to take a view on common good or not. The lease was entered into in 1992. It was originally for 125 years. But through a complex set of subleasing and transfers of interest, the actual money that is associated with that asset to the council was £6.25 million. Other people received £23 million. The lease is indeed a peppercorn rent. I don't believe even the penny is collected for rather obvious reasons, that it would be rather difficult to justify the economics of that. The bill does provide for reversionary payments, as others have referred to, under sections 50 to 55 in the bill. Ultimately, it can be a matter of agreement between the tenant and the landlord, or, of course, it can be determined by a tribunal. In the case of the Waverley Market, the lease expires in the year 2188, and on that basis it would be open to Edinburgh to consider claiming an additional payment. I think it would certainly be likely that in any assessment that was made by a tribunal, they would seek to take account of the grassam that was paid in trying to assess what residual value might be due to the return of that asset to Edinburgh in 2188. My own back-of-the-envelope calculations suggested that a 7.5% discount rate on £6.25 million took you to £25 million today, which is probably there or thereabouts. So it may well be that there is not much residual value. I do recognise the points made by the Council, by Andy Whiteman and by Marco Biaggi about the Waverley Market. The Council did mention the Confirmation Act of 1991 briefly when they gave evidence to the committee, but focusing perhaps on issues like height of the Waverley Market, which of course can be controlled by the planning system. So we do need to look at the interaction between the bill that's before us, hopefully to become an act, and other acts. We will take this extremely seriously indeed. And indeed the whole debate around common good is one which I think is worthy of revisiting in another context and another time. But whether we we cannot simply legislate away some of the practical problems that may exist there. But certainly it has thrown into public view some of the issues there. I've been grateful for the help we've had from local authorities on the issue of common good land that might be affected by changes in ultra-long leases. That's been very helpful. We expected the number of leases to be low. It is at 9, and we believe that that is the case. The previous Bill Committee, when considered by the Justice Committee, James Kelly asked Andy Whiteman, do you accept the view the number of ultra-long leases, common good property, is limited? And he said yes. So there is a shared recognition that we had expected that number to be low, and indeed it is. But what we haven't received to date from City of Edinburgh Council is a terribly convincing argument that helps us to see how we can deal with Waverley Market differently. But the work we're now doing, I think, picks up some important issues. The committee report at 135 paragraph welcomes the Scottish Government's intention to write to local authorities recommending that proceeds of any compensation should be directed to the Common Good Fund, albeit that it will not be very much money. If the bill is passed by Parliament, I will of course write to authorities again. On the land register, we'll certainly see how best to achieve what needs to be done. The current proposals we believe to be proportionate will work with the registers of Scotland. The ultra-long leases are in particular concentrated areas of the country. Will target there. This is a law reform measure. I'm delighted to have the privilege of bringing it forward. Principles have been widely accepted. I urge members to vote yes at decision time. Thank you very much.